Black flames covered its body. It looked directly at Goku. "You are the destroyer?" "Yep." The creature laughed. "Small." Goku scratched his cheek. "I get that a lot." The creature raised one arm. Space cracked. Entire asteroid belts shattered. The heroes below froze. Goku's smile disappeared. Purple lightning appeared. Silver aura followed. The creature grinned. "Better." Darkseid spoke. "Kill him." The creature moved. Stone. No warning. Its fist reached Goku. Boom! Space exploded. Shockwaves crossed planets. Earth's atmosphere split. Flash lost balance. Tony's systems crashed. Thor nearly fell. Smoke filled the orbit. Darkseid watched. Calm. Then, a voice came from inside. "Hey!" The smoke vanished. Goku stood there. One hand raised. Blocking. No damage. No movement. The creature stopped smiling. Goku looked up. Silver eyes. Purple sparks. "You hit hard." Silence. His aura expanded. Stars dimmed. "You're gonna be fun." Far below, Deadpool slowly stood. He pointed upward. "Oh." Pause. "Oh no." Goku lowered into stance. Ultra instinct awakened. Destruction energy erupted. The sky turned silver and purple. Darkseid narrowed his eyes. The creature finally looked serious. And across the universe, gods began watching, because the battle had started. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. The Crucible of Gods. The shockwave from that single blocked punch didn't just rattle Earth's orbit. It sent a mechanical tremor straight through the Watchtower's primary gravitational stabilizers. Artificial gravity flickered for 3 seconds across every sector of the station, leaving the gathered heroes weightless before slamming them back down to the grated metal floor. Structural integrity dropping by 5%. Tony Stark shouted, his voice cracking through the comms as his armor's primary systems frantically rebooted from the electromagnetic pulse. He didn't even swing. He just blocked it. "That creature," Doctor Strange murmured, his cloak of levitation fluttering aggressively as he floated above the tactical table. His hands moved in intricate, geometric patterns, casting the orange bands of the Eldritch shields just to keep the leaking shockwaves from shattering the Watchtower's reinforced viewport. It isn't born of our magic, nor the cosmic energies of the universe. It is an anomaly, a walking cosmic error. It's an engine of execution, Batman corrected, his fingers tearing through the encrypted files he had scraped from Apocalypse's outer databanks before the boom tube opened. The old gods built it before their fall. A weapon designed specifically to hunt down anything carrying the divine authority of a destroyer. It adapts to the frequency of Hawkeye. Up in the void, the creature didn't care about the mathematical equations of mortals. It pulled its massive, mountain-sized fist back from Goku's palm, the black stone armor fusing with its flesh grinding together with the sound of tectonic plates. The purple cracks running across its chest flared with a blinding, toxic light, spewing a wave of antimatter plasma that immediately began to boil the vacuum of space. "You are not but flesh," the giant rumbled, its voice shaking the dental work of every hero watching from Earth. "The title wears you like a garment. Cherish your leftover breaths, successor." Goku didn't bounce on his toes. He didn't drop into his usual playful, loose-limbed martial arts dance. Instead, his body sunk an inch into the vacuum, his boots anchoring against the invisible fabric of space. The silver fire of Ultra Instinct didn't explode outward this time. It drew completely into his skin, turning his flesh a dense, pearlescent white, while the dark violet lightning of the destroyer coiled tightly around his forearms like heavy iron bands. "Hey, Darkseid," Goku called out, his voice sharp enough to cut through the telepathic noise of the Parademon Armada. "You said you wanted to test my claim, right? Is this big guy your champion, or are you just hiding behind him?" Darkseid stood upon the prow of his grand dreadnought, his massive hands clasped behind his back, his gray face completely expressionless under the cosmic glare. "He is not a champion," Kakarot, Darkseid rumbled, his deep voice carrying the absolute weight of a planet. "He is the natural consequence of your arrogance. You took the mantle of destruction without understanding its burden. Now, the universe corrects itself." The creature lunged again, This time, it didn't use a simple punch. It raised both hands, its fingers curling into claws as it tore downward through the dimensional fabric. Space itself shredded like wet parchment, creating 10-mile-long black fractures that began to siphon the surrounding stars into a localized void. Goku wasn't there. The creature's claws tore through empty space, the kinetic force of the mist strike blowing past Earth and instantly vaporizing 3 uninhabited moons in the outer asteroid belt. Speed is a mortal comfort. The giant hissed, its yellow eyes snapping upward. Goku had materialized directly above the creature's head. His hands were clasped together, drawn back to his right hip. The dense, volatile energy of the god of destruction began to pool between his palms. But it wasn't a standard energy sphere. It was a compressed, jagged crystal of pure violet and silver static. "Let's see you adapt to this," Goku yelled. "Gah! Me! Me!" The universe held its breath. The stars behind Goku seemed to bend inward, pulled toward the gravity of the attack before it had even been unleashed. Below, on the surface of Earth, the sky changed. In New York, the afternoon sun turned a deep, bruised shade of indigo. In New Asgard, the northern lights exploded into a violent purple fire that illuminated the mountains for hundreds of miles. "He's going to fire it directly at the planet's orbit," Superman yelled, his cape flaring as he prepared to launch himself into the thermosphere to act as a shield if the beam went wide. "No," Thor called out, gripping Stormbreaker so tightly the wood groaned. "Look at his angle. He isn't aiming down. He's aiming through them." The beam didn't roar like a typical energy blast. It was a silent, deafening tear across reality. A massive torrent of violet destruction energy, wrapped in a spiral of silver ultra instinct fire, erupted from Goku's palms and slammed dead center into the creature's chest armor. The impact was so dense, it created a localized gravitational collapse. For a single second, the entire Parademon armada, millions of warships and monsters, was pulled forward by the sheer mass of the beam. The creature roared, its black stone armor cracking open like dry wood under the weight of the Hakai. The purple runes across its flesh flared violently, trying to absorb and adapt to the frequency of the destruction. But the silver light of Ultra Instinct kept shifting the energy's rhythm, changing the vibration a million times a second. "It is too fluid," the giant screamed, its mountain-sized body being driven backward through orbit, crashing through its own warships, leaving a trail of shattered iron and green fire in its wake. Darkseid's eyes narrowed for the first time. He didn't move from his position on the flagship, but the red lines of the Omega Sanction began to sizzle around his face. Goku dropped his hands, his breathing steady, the silver in his eyes glittering like ice. He didn't wait for the smoke to clear. He vanished again. Crack! A second later, Goku appeared directly behind the falling giant. He spun in midair, his right heel catching the creature between its shoulder blades with the force of an exploding star. The giant was redirected, sent hurtling downward toward the dead, barren surface of Mars at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Goku stopped in a vacuum, wiping a single smudge of soot from his orange sleeve. He looked back at Darkseid, his small, serious smile returning. "Your turn, King," Goku said. From the watchtower floor, Deadpool took another bite of his third taco, pointing up at the screen with his greasy thumb. "I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely giving the gardener a 5-star review on Yelp." End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12, The Red Pruning. Mars was a world of cold rust and ancient dust. But today, the red planet became an anvil. When the ancient executioner creature struck the surface, the kinetic energy didn't just cause a crater. It triggered a planetary fracture. A chasm 10 miles wide tore across the Valles Marineris, spewing pressurized mantle into the thin, frozen atmosphere. The beast roared, a sound that vibrated through the red soil, shattering stone for thousands of leagues. It dragged its massive, mountain-sized torso out of the burning rift. The black armor fused to its skin glowing a violent, toxic orange from the heat of the planet's core. The purple cracks across its chest were weeping dark, antimatter fluid that hissed as it touched the Martian dust. Insufficient. The creature screamed into the void, its hollow yellow eyes locking onto the upper sky. The destroyer is insufficient. I have adapted to the Hakai. I have measured the revolution of your silver light. Come down and perish, mortal. High above the edge of Mars' orbit, Goku didn't descend. He simply stood in the vacuum, his arms hanging loosely at his sides. The silver fire of Ultra Instinct had vanished. The quiet, disciplined peace of the divine technique was completely gone, replaced by a dense, suffocating crimson mist that began to leak from his pores. His hair, usually black or silver, was now vibrating with a dark, bruised shade of magenta. The raw, unfiltered pressure of a god of destruction whose temper had finally slipped past the threshold of martial arts sportsmanship. "Hey, Vado Seal," Goku said, his voice dropping into that terrifying, dual-toned resonance that made the vacuum itself feel thick. "Yes, my lord," the angel replied, hovering miles back, her staff drawing a massive protective barrier around her to shield herself from the sudden, toxic change in Goku's power. "You said this guy was built to execute destroyers, right?" He was Lord Goku. He adapts to the concept of Hakai. Goku's jaw tightened. "Then I won't use the concept. I'll just use the weight." 1. Goku vanished. There was no flash of light, no sonic boom. Space simply buckled where he had been standing. Before the beast's ancient, yellow eyes could even track the displacement, Goku appeared directly on its massive nose. The size difference was absurd. Goku was a speck compared to the mountain-sized skull of the Executioner. But the gravity radiating from the Saiyan was so immense that the beast's head was instantly driven 600 feet down into the Martian bedrock before a punch was even thrown. Goku pulled his right arm back, his fist turning completely black under the density of his condensed muscle. Crack! The first strike landed dead center on the creature's forehead. It wasn't an explosion of energy. It was an explosion of pure, concussive mass. The entire northern hemisphere of Mars rippled like water. The beast's skull didn't just break. The stone armor fused to its face was reduced to a fine, gray powder instantly. The giant screamed, a sound of absolute structural failure as its neck vertebrae turned to dust. 2. Goku didn't let the creature fall. He caught it by its massive left horn with one hand. His fingers sank into the ancient, cosmic bone like it was soft clay. With a single, brutal twist of his torso, Goku swung the mountain-sized entity through the air, using its own momentum to slam it back into the burning volcanic plains of Olympus Mons. The volcano, dormant for millions of years, erupted instantly under the impact, spewing black ash and lava 5 miles into the sky. Goku floated above the smoke, his eyes completely bloodshot, the crimson mist around his body turning into dark, jagged lightning that smelled of ozone and iron. He raised his left leg, his knee drawing back. 3. He dropped like a falling star, his heel driving straight into the center of the beast's chest, precisely where the purple antimatter core was pulsing. Asterisk boom, asterisk. The strike went completely through. Goku's leg didn't just break the armor. It shattered the concept of the beast entirely. The purple cracks across the giant's body turned gray, then white, then disintegrated into a cloud of silent, cold dust that drifted across the red desert. The ancient engine of execution, built by the old gods to slay the masters of the cosmos, was gone in 3 clean movements. Goku stood in the center of the crater, the red Martian wind whipping through his torn trousers. He slowly lifted his head, his face covered in dark soot and the purple, foul-smelling fluid of the beast. His teeth were bared in a fierce, unnatural snarl that looked entirely alien on the face of the Saiyan. The warrior was gone. The berserker had awakened. The crimson void. Kakarot. The voice didn't come from behind him. It came from above. Darkseid descended into the Martian atmosphere, his massive dreadnought hovering in the low orbit behind him like a dark moon. The Lord of Apocalypse had finally discarded his cape. His gray, rocky skin was covered in glowing, crimson lines of pure Omega energy that hissed against the thin air. You have cleared the board, Darkseid rumbled, landing 20 paces from Goku. The ground beneath his heavy boots instantly vitrified into black glass. The weapon of the old gods was a relic of a failed age. They believed destruction was an art. They believed it had rules. Darkseid took one step forward, his eyes burning with an intense, blinding red light that cast long, jagged shadows across the plains. "But I know the truth," Darkseid said, his voice dropping into an absolute, suffocating register. "Destruction is not an art. It is a mathematical certainty, and I am the equation." Goku didn't answer with words. He didn't drop into a stance. He let out a low, guttural roar that tore the remaining atmosphere of Mars to shreds. The red mist around him exploded into a pillar of pure, violet and crimson fire that reached all the way into the lower thermosphere. His muscles expanded, the veins in his neck and forehead pulsing violently against his skin as he broke past the limits of his divine training, diving headfirst into the raw, brutal instinct of the great ape that slept within his blood. Fuerosh. The speed was primitive. It was brutal. Goku slammed into Darkseid before the Omega beams could even ignite. The impact tore a shockwave across the planet that was visible from the Watchtower's main sensors back on Earth. Darkseid's rocky jaw shattered under the first left hook, fragments of gray stone spraying into the red dust. But the Lord of Apocalypse didn't fall back. He gripped Goku by the throat with both hands, his fingers digging into the Saiyan's neck, channeling the raw, anti-life energy directly into Goku's vocal cords. "Perish," Darkseid hissed, unleashing his heat vision at point-blank range directly into Goku's face. The crimson beams burned through Goku's skin, tearing away the flesh of his right cheek, exposing the white bone and teeth beneath. The blood, hot, thick, and bright red, erupted from the wound, covering Goku's entire head in a mask of gore. But Goku didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Through the red fire of the Omega beams, his single left eye burned with a savage, berserk madness. He opened his mouth, spitting a mouthful of blood directly into Darkseid's face, blinding the tyrant for a fraction of a second. With a feral shriek, Goku reached up and grabbed Darkseid's left arm by the wrist and the shoulder. Screech. The sound was sickening. It wasn't the sound of stone breaking. It was the sound of sinew, muscle, and ancient, cosmic bone being torn apart by raw, unassisted physical force. Goku planted his boot firmly against Darkseid's ribs and pulled. Rip! Darkseid's left arm was torn completely out of its socket. A torrent of dark, thick, metallic blood sprayed across the Martian sand, painting the black glass red. The Lord of Apocalypse let out a low, grim groan, his massive body staggering back as his severed limb hit the floor with a heavy thud. "I am Darkseid," the tyrant whispered, his single remaining hand gathering a massive, unstable sphere of red Omega fire. "I do not break. D." Goku roared, his voice completely raw, his throat bleeding from the anti-life burn. He didn't use a technique. He didn't use the Hakai. Goku lunged forward, his fingers curling into sharp, rigid claws. He drove both hands straight into Darkseid's abdomen, his fingers tearing through the heavy armor and the gray stone flesh like it was wet paper. He buried his arms up to his elbows inside the tyrant's torso. SBLX. With a brutal, downward jerk, Goku tore Darkseid's stomach completely open. The crimson light of the Omega energy within the tyrant's core flared violently, trying to reject the invasion, but Goku's berserk aura was too dense. He reached inside the cavity, his hands wrapping around the ancient, dark organs that sustained the Lord of Apocalypse. One by one, with the clinical, unhinged ferocity of a starving predator, Goku pulled them out. The dark liver, the pulsing black heart, the winding tracks of cosmic tissue. He ripped them from the cavity and threw them into the dust, stamping them beneath his boots until the crater was nothing but a swamp of black and red gore. Darkseid fell to his knees. His single eye was fading, the crimson light turning into a dull, cold gray. He looked up at the Saiyan, at the monster covered in his own blood and the blood of his enemy. his face half-skinned, his teeth exposed in a permanent, bloody snarl. For the first time since the creation of the Fourth World, Darkseid felt a cold, primitive tremor of absolute terror. "You are no god," Darkseid gasped, his throat filling with dark fluid. "You are a monster." Goku didn't offer a witty reply. He didn't smile. He raised his right hand, his palm hovering an inch from Darkseid's ruined face. A single, tiny spark of deep violet light appeared on the tip of his bloody index finger. Hakai. POP. There was no explosion. The remainder of Darkseid's body, the stone torso, the remaining arm, the broken crown, turned into a gray, silent mist that was instantly carried away by the cold Martian wind. The Lord of Apocalypse was gone. Goku stood alone in the center of the Crimson Desert, his body shivering as the berserk adrenaline began to leave his veins. The magenta fire faded, leaving him standing in the quiet, red dust, his head covered in blood, staring blankly at the empty space where a king used to rule. High above, the Parademon Armada began to scatter into the dark sectors of space, their master's tether completely severed. From the edge of the crater, Vadociel landed softly, her staff humming a quiet, somber tune. She didn't look at the blood on the floor. She looked at Goku's half-ruined face, her expression deeply serious. "The throne is empty, Lord Goku," she said softly. "But the smell of iron, it is very loud today." Goku didn't look back. He merely looked at his own hands, covered in the blood of a god, and let out a long, heavy breath that turned to mist in the freezing air. End of Chapter 12.